The stars above Titan's surface looked peaceful that night. Inside the colony dome, families were finishing their evening meals. Minji and Junho, 8-year-old twins, were arguing about who would wash the dishes. Their father Do-yun laughed at their bickering while checking the terraforming equipment. Readings on his tablet. 3 sectors away. 12-year-old Hyun was helping his mother Yoonha organize medical supplies in the clinic. The boy wanted to be a doctor like her someday. He carefully labeled each container while she explained what each medicine did. In the agricultural wing, 6-year-old Nari sat on her father Sang-hoon's shoulders as he inspected the crop growth under the artificial lights. She giggled and pointed at the tomatoes, asking when they would turn red. Nobody noticed the ships descending from orbit. The Valkyrie fleet had been watching Earth's colonies for months. They were an old empire, powerful and proud. They had conquered 47 worlds across the galaxy. Their technology was superior to humanity's by at least 2 centuries. Their military had never lost a major conflict. Commander Thalvek sat in his command chair, studying the scan results of the Titan colony. Only 300 humans lived there. Mostly families, scientists, engineers, farmers. No military presence worth mentioning. Perfect. Captain Byung-ho, Thalvek said, addressing the Valkyrie officer who had chosen a human name for this operation. Begin the raid. Take hostages. Prioritize the young ones. They will make the adults cooperate faster. Byung-ho nodded. He had led dozens of such operations. This would be simple. The Valkyrie soldiers moved through the colony like shadows. Their armor made them nearly invisible. Their weapons were silent. The colony's defense systems were centuries behind Valkyrie countermeasures. Within minutes, they had disabled all communications and locked down the main dome. Do-yun heard his door burst open. Before he could react, armored figures filled his home. Minji screamed. Junho tried to run, but strong hands grabbed him. Do-yun fought back, landing several punches on the nearest soldier, but a weapon fired and pain exploded through his body. He collapsed, paralyzed but conscious, forced to watch as the soldiers carried his children away. "Dad!" Minji cried out, reaching for him. Tears streamed down her face. In the medical clinic, Yoonha tried to shield Hyun behind her. She was a doctor, trained to save lives, not fight. But when they reached for her son, something primal awakened in her. She grabbed a surgical laser and slashed at the nearest soldier. The tool barely scratched his armor. They stunned her and took Hyun anyway. "Mom! Mom!" Hyun shouted as they dragged him toward the exit. Sang-hoon had been in the fields when the attack began. He ran toward the residential area when he heard the screams. He saw soldiers carrying Nari toward their ship. His little girl was crying, calling for him. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. Almost reached them. A Valkyrie soldier shot him in the leg. He fell, crawling forward, stretching his hand toward his daughter. "Papa!" Nari's voice echoed as they carried her into the ship. Within 20 minutes, the raid was over. 4 children taken. Dozens of parents stunned or injured. The Valkyrie ships lifted off, leaving chaos behind. When the paralysis wore off, Do-yun dragged himself to his communication terminal. His hand shook as he sent an emergency signal to Earth. Other parents were doing the same. Their messages were desperate, broken, filled with anguish. "They took our children. Please, they took our children." Aboard the Valkyrie command ship, the 4 children sat in a detention cell. The room was clean but cold. Strange lights hummed above them. Everything smelled wrong. Minji held Junho's hand. Her brother was trying not to cry. Hyun sat against the wall, his jaw clenched, trying to be brave. Nari sobbed quietly, clutching a small toy her father had made for her. "Why did they take us?" Junho whispered. "I don't know," Minji said. But she remembered stories her father told her. Stories about bad people who hurt others to get what they wanted. She understood more than her brother did. Captain Byung-ho walked past their cell, barely glancing at them. To him, they were just tools, assets, things to be used to make their parents cooperate. He had done this before on other worlds. It always worked. On Earth, the news spread like fire. The Titan raid was broadcast across every network. Images of crying parents. Audio recordings of children's screams. Video footage of Valkyrie ships leaving with humanity's young. The United Earth Coalition held an emergency session. Politicians debated. Some called for negotiation. Others demanded immediate military response. While they talked, the Valkyries sent their ultimatum. The message appeared on every screen across human space. Commander Thalvek's face filled the displays. His translator device made his words clear. Humans of Earth, we are the Valkyrie Empire. We have taken citizens from your Titan colony. They are safe and will remain so if you cooperate. We claim this solar system's outer planets and their resources. You will not resist. You will provide us with raw materials. You will acknowledge our superiority. If you refuse, the hostages will suffer. You have 72 hours to comply. The message ended. Silence fell across Earth. In millions of homes, parents held their children closer. They imagined Minji, Junho, Hyan, and Nari in alien hands. They imagined their own children taken. Something ancient stirred in the human heart. Something that had kept humanity alive through ice ages and predators and countless dangers. Dain sat in a hospital bed on Titan, his body recovering from the stun weapon. Yunha was 2 rooms away, her burns being treated. Sang-hoon was in surgery for his leg wound. A nurse approached Do-yoon with a tablet. Sir, Earth Command wants to know if you have any information that could help them negotiate. Do-hyun looked at the nurse with eyes that seemed to burn. Tell them I don't want negotiation. Tell them I want my children back. Tell them whatever it takes. The nurse nodded and left. She had seen that look in every parent's eyes on Titan. It was a look that frightened her more than the aliens did. Across Earth, the same look was spreading. High Commander Ralsith had served the Valkyrie Empire for 60 cycles. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. He had negotiated treaties and commanded fleets. He had witnessed the conquest of dozens of worlds. Experience had taught him which species would fight and which would surrender. More importantly, it had taught him which lines should never be crossed. When his transport ship docked with the command vessel, he was expecting a routine inspection. The Titan operation was small. A minor colony. Basic hostage situation. Nothing that should require a high commander's attention. Then, he read the report. Ralseth felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. He walked through the corridors of the ship with quick steps. Officers saluted as he passed, but he ignored them. He reached the command center, and the doors slid open. Commander Thalvex turned to greet him with a confident smile. High Commander, welcome. As you can see, the operation was flawless. We have 4 hostages. The humans will comply within. What species did you take? Ralseth interrupted. Thalvex blinked, confused by the question. Humans, from Earth. As ordered by what age? Sir, the hostages. What age are they? Ralseth's voice was sharp now. Captain Byung-ho stepped forward. Between 6 and 12 cycles, High Commander. Children are the most effective leverage. Their parents will do anything to show me. They led him to the detention area. Through the transparent barrier, Ralseth saw the 4 children. Minji was braiding Nari's hair. Junho was trying to make Hyan smile by making faces. They were scared, but trying to comfort each other. Ralseth closed his eyes. When he opened them, his face had changed. The other officers had never seen their commander look like this. He looked old suddenly, tired. "Release them?" Ralseth said quietly. "Sir?" Thalvex was certain he had misheard. "Release them, now. Immediately. Return them to their families and pray to whatever gods you believe in that we can undo this." Captain Byung-ho stepped closer. "Aye, Commander. With respect, our intelligence shows humans are weak. They avoid conflict. They are divided. They value individual life over collective goals. Taking their young is the perfect strategy." To Ralseth grabbed Byung-ho by the front of his uniform. The captain was younger, stronger, but he froze in shock. High commanders did not lose composure. Ever. "You know nothing," Ralseth said through clenched teeth. "Your intelligence is worthless. You have no idea what you have done." He released Byung-ho and turned to address everyone in the room. "I have studied 347 species across this galaxy. I have seen patterns. There are species that fight for territory, species that fight for resources, species that fight for honor or religion or politics. But there is one type of species you never, ever provoke. Bonding species." Thalvex frowned. Bonding species are typically less aggressive. They invest heavily in offspring care rather than military strength. That makes them the most dangerous thing in the universe when you threaten their young, Ralseth said. "Yes, they invest everything in their offspring. Do you understand what that means? It means they will sacrifice anything to protect them. Not sometimes, not usually, always." He pulled up a holographic display. Images of different species appeared. The Krell of Sector 9, bonding species. "We took 3 of their young during negotiations. They had no fleet, no weapons. Within one cycle, they had converted every ship, every vehicle, every piece of machinery into weapons. They lost 90% of their population, destroying our occupation force. The Krell are now extinct, but so is the entire Valkyrie Third Fleet that took their children." Another image appeared. The Thon Collective. Peaceful traders for centuries. "We took hostages during a resource dispute. 50 of their young. The Thon abandoned their homeworld, converted their trade ships into bombs, and flew them into our stations. Millions of their own people died in the conversion process. They did not care. They only cared about reaching their children." Ralseth turned to face his officers. "Bonding species do not think like us. They do not calculate costs and benefits when their young are threatened. They do not negotiate or compromise or seek peaceful solutions. They become something else, something we cannot defeat because they are not trying to win. They are trying to save their children, and they will pay any price to do it. But humans have shown no such tendencies," Thalvex argued. Your observations show peacetime behavior. You have never threatened their young before. None of our encounters with humanity involved their children. You have awakened something in them that you cannot control." Captain Byung-ho looked uncertain now but tried to maintain his position. "Even if what you say is true, we can contain this. We have superior technology, superior numbers. They cannot reach this ship. They will reach this ship," Ralseth said with certainty. "I do not know how or when, but they will come. And when they do, nothing will stop them. Not our shields, not our weapons, not our fleets. Because every human who has ever loved a child will be coming for us." He turned to Thalvex. "Send the message to Earth. Tell them we are returning the children. Tell them we made a mistake. Apologize. Beg, if necessary." Thalvex straightened. "Aye, Commander. With respect, I take my orders from the Imperial Council, not from field commanders. I have already transmitted my report. The Council has approved the hostage strategy. They have ordered me to proceed with the communication panel beeped. A priority message from the Valkyrie homeworld. Thalvax opened it, expecting support. Instead, the face of Council Member Genitar appeared. Commander Thalvax, maintain current position. High Commander Ralsith's concerns are noted but overruled. Humanity's response confirms our assessment. They are requesting negotiation. They are offering concessions. The strategy is working. Hold the hostages until full compliance is achieved. The message ended. Thalvax looked at Ralsith with something like sympathy, but also satisfaction. You see, High Commander, the humans are already backing down. Your fears are unfounded. Ralsith looked at the display showing Minji, Junho, Hyen, and Nari. The children were sleeping now, huddled together for warmth and comfort. He felt a deep sadness. I have served the Empire for 60 cycles, he said softly. I have seen us make mistakes before. But this will end us. You have not seen the humans back down. You have seen them buying time. That night, in the detention cell, Minji woke up from a nightmare. Nari was crying again. Junho was cold. Hyan was trying to be brave, but his eyes were red. Minji looked at the strange walls around them. She thought about her father. She remembered his face when they took her. The way he had fought even when he should not have been able to move. The determination in his eyes. My dad will come, she whispered to the others. All our parents will come. Nari sniffled. How do you know? Because that's what parents do, Minji said with certainty. They always come for their children, always. Outside the cell, a Valkyrie guard heard her words and smiled to himself. Foolish human child. This was space. Her father was on Titan. There was no way for him to reach them. The guard did not understand. None of them did. Not yet. The 72-hour deadline passed. Earth's official response was delivered through diplomatic channels. It was measured and careful. It spoke of negotiations and peaceful solutions. It requested proof of life for the hostages. It proposed talks. The Valkyrie Council smiled. They had been right. The humans were weak, but the official response was just words. The real answer was happening everywhere else on Earth. Something had changed. The change was subtle at first. People stopped going to work in entertainment industries. Concert halls sat empty. Sports stadiums were abandoned. Factories that made luxury goods shut down. Within 48 hours of the Titan raid, humanity's entire industrial capacity began shifting. Admiral Taijin was 73 years old. He had retired from the United Earth Space Navy 10 years earlier after his son Youngsu died in an accident aboard a training vessel. He had spent his retirement teaching history at a university. He had promised his wife he would never go back to the military. But when he saw Minji's face on the news, crying as Valkyrie soldiers carried her away, he saw his own son. He saw every child he had ever known. He walked into the recruitment office wearing his old uniform. The young officer at the desk looked confused. Sir, this is a recruitment center for active duty personnel. The Veteran Services Office is... I know what this is, Taijin said. I am volunteering for combat duty. I want to be assigned to whatever fleet is going after those children. Sir, with respect, you are past the age of... I am past the age of caring about regulations. My son is dead, but those 4 children are alive. Someone's children are alive. And I will either help bring them home or I will die trying. Now where do I sign? The officer looked at him for a long moment. Then he pushed a tablet across the desk. Welcome back, Admiral. Taijin was not alone. Within 1 week, 70,000 retired military personnel re-enlisted. The average age was 56. They were too old by every regulation in the book. Nobody cared. They had one qualification that mattered more than age or physical ability. They were parents and grandparents. They understood. Pilot Ji-won was 29. She had flown commercial transports for 5 years. Peaceful routes between Earth and Mars. She had never fired a weapon. She had never wanted to. She had a daughter. Bora was 4 years old. When Ji-won saw Nari's picture, all she could think was that could be Bora. Some alien species had decided that taking children was acceptable. That children were tools. That parents would simply accept it. Ji-won signed up for combat pilot training. The instructor told her she would need 6 months minimum to be ready for military operations. She learned it in 6 days. She barely slept. She studied weapon systems and combat maneuvers until her eyes burned. When the instructor said she was not ready, she looked at him and said something that made him step back. Those are someone's children up there. Every hour we waste is another hour they're scared and alone. So either teach me faster or get out of my way. She qualified for combat duty in 9 days, a record. She was assigned to a strike wing headed toward Valkyrie space. Scientist Soman had spent 15 years researching xenobiology. She was fascinated by alien life forms. She had always believed in peaceful coexistence and scientific cooperation between species. Then the Valkyrie took children. Her research immediately shifted. She stopped studying how to understand alien biology. She started studying how to kill it. She weaponized every piece of knowledge she had. Valkyrie armor had a weakness in the joint seals. Their weapons relied on a specific energy frequency. Their ships had vulnerable points in their shield grids. She shared everything freely. Every human research station started doing the same. The scientific community that had spent decades trying to understand aliens now focused on one goal: find the weaknesses, exploit them. NM. Marine Kyung-woo was 31. He had served 2 tours in the Earth Defense Force. He was good at his job, but he had always questioned orders, always calculated risks, always thought about survival. He had a nephew. Jinwoo was 7. When Kyung-woo heard about the Titan raid, he picked up his nephew from school early and held him for a long time. Jinwoo asked why his uncle was crying. Kyung-woo could not explain. When the call went out for volunteers for the boarding teams, everyone knew it was a death sentence. The Valkyrie command ship was heavily defended. The casualties would be enormous. Military analysts gave the mission a 3% chance of success. Kyung-woo was the first to volunteer. When his commander asked why he would accept such a mission, Kyung-woo said something simple. Because if it was Jinwoo up there, I would want someone to try. So I have to try for someone else's Jinwoo. The boarding teams filled up in 4 hours. They had to turn volunteers away. On Titan, Dal-yoon was healing. The doctor said he needed rest. He ignored them. He studied every piece of information about Valkyrie technology. He was an engineer. He understood systems. He learned how Valkyrie ships worked. He designed countermeasures. He built weapons from mining equipment. The medical staff tried to sedate him. He threatened to walk out of the hospital. They let him work. Una recovered from her burns. She should have been resting. Instead, she worked with the bioresearch teams. She was a doctor. She knew how bodies worked. She helped develop biological agents that would affect Valkyrie physiology. She did not think about whether it was ethical. She only thought about Hyan, about bringing him home. Sang-hoon's leg was shattered. He would never walk normally again. The doctors said he would need months of physical therapy. He did it in 3 weeks. He pushed through pain that should have been impossible to endure. When asked how he managed it, he showed them a picture of Nari. "She is waiting for me," he said. "I cannot let her wait long." All 3 of them demanded to be part of the rescue operation. The military said no. They were civilians. They had no combat training. They would be liabilities. Doyen looked at the officer who denied them and said something that spread across every human channel within hours. "They have our children. We are going. You can let us on your ships or we will build our own. Choose." The military chose to let them on the ships. The Valkyrie watched all of this with confusion. Humans were supposed to be weak, divided, careful. Instead, they saw entire industries converting to military production. They saw civilians learning combat skills. They saw old people and injured people and soft people turning into something else. Commander Thalvax sent updated reports to the Council. The humans are preparing for conflict, but their approach is chaotic. They are sending untrained personnel. Their fleet is composed partially of converted civilian vessels. They have no unified strategy. Our victory is certain. High Commander Raul Seth received the same reports. He read them and felt sick. The Valkyrie still did not understand. They were analyzing human behavior through their own lens. They saw chaos. They saw poor military planning. They saw inefficiency. They did not see what Raul Seth saw. They did not see a species unified by something stronger than training or strategy or technology. They did not see millions of individuals who had decided that 4 children they had never met were worth dying for, because those 4 children represented every child. And every human who had ever loved a child understood what that meant. The human fleet began assembling. It was not elegant. It was not efficient. Ships of different designs and ages grouped together. Retired veterans flew alongside young recruits. Scientists worked next to soldiers. Parents stood beside those who had no children but understood why they had to fight. Admiral Taijin stood on the bridge of the flagship. He looked at the assembled fleet. It was not the strongest force humanity could build. It was not the smartest approach. It was something else. It was every person who had decided that some things were worth any sacrifice. "Take us to our children," he said. And the fleet moved. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Valkyrie space 17 days after the children were taken. The Valkyrie 3rd Defense Fleet was waiting for them. 43 warships against humanity's assembled force of 72 vessels. The Valkyrie ships were superior in every measurable way. Stronger shields, better weapons, faster engines, more experienced crews. Commander Thalvax watched the human approach from his command center. They are attacking directly. No tactical formation. No feints or flanking maneuvers. They are simply coming forward. His tactical officer nodded. "Yes, sir. Their strategy appears to be based on overwhelming our position through numbers. Primitive approach. We will destroy at least half their fleet before they reach effective weapons range. Then begin firing." The Valkyrie fleet opened fire. Space lit up with energy weapons. The first salvo destroyed 3 human ships instantly. Another 4 took critical damage. The humans did not slow down. They did not change course. They kept coming. Admiral Taijin watched the casualties mount on his display. Each blinking red light was a ship. Each ship held hundreds of people. He felt their loss like a physical weight. But he also knew something the Valkyrie did not understand yet. All ships maintain course. Do not engage in ship-to-ship combat. Our target is the command vessel. That is where the children are. Everything else is irrelevant. The human fleet took devastating losses. But they were not trying to win a space battle. They were trying to reach one specific ship. Every vessel that survived pushed forward. Ships that lost weapons capability became shields for others. Damaged vessels used their last power to ram Valkyrie ships that blocked the path. Pilot Jiwan's fighter wing reached the Valkyrie line. Valkyrie interceptors met them. She lost 6 pilots in the first 30 seconds of combat. She did not think about them. Could not think about them. She had to focus. Blue wing, target that cruiser's shield generator. Red Wing, follow my approach. We are going through, not around. Our fighter took a hit. Alarm screamed. Her co-pilot, a young man named Gunho, called out damage reports. Port engine failing. Shield at 12%. Weapon systems damaged. Jiwon saw the Valkyrie flagship ahead. She saw the cruiser in her path. She calculated the odds of getting past it. Very low. She thought about her daughter Bora, about Minji, Junho, Hyam, and Nari aboard that flagship. She made a decision. Gunho, eject. Now. What? No, that is an order. Eject. Gunho hesitated for 1 second, then pulled his ejection handle. His pod shot away from the fighter. Jiwon armed her remaining missiles and torpedoes. Set them all to detonate on impact. She accelerated toward the cruiser. The Valkyrie crew saw her coming. They increased power to their forward shields. They thought she would try to break through. She did not. At the last moment, Jiwon turned hard and aimed for the shield generator Summon's research had identified as vulnerable. The generator that, if destroyed, would take down the shields for 15 seconds before backups engaged. 15 seconds was enough. Her fighter hit the generator at full speed. The explosion tore through the cruiser's shield grid. For 15 seconds, there was a gap. 23 human ships poured through before the shields came back up. Among them was the assault carrier holding Marine Kyungwoo's boarding teams. Jiwon never knew her sacrifice worked. She died instantly. But her daughter would later learn that her mother had opened the path. That 4 children came home because a pilot named Jiwon decided some things were worth dying for. The assault carrier rammed into the Valkyrie flagship's docking port. It was not a gentle docking. The carrier's front section crumpled. Alarms rang throughout both ships. The carrier's captain, a grandmother named Yoonji, died in the impact. But the boarding tube held Marine Kyungwoo led the first team through. The Valkyrie defenders were waiting. Energy weapons fired down the corridor. 3 of his Marines fell in the first seconds. He kept moving forward. Behind him, more teams poured through. They took terrible casualties. But they were not trying to survive. They were trying to advance. Kyungwoo threw a grenade around a corner. The explosion cleared the next corridor. His team moved forward over the bodies of fallen comrades. He tried not to see their faces. Tried not to think about their families. There would be time for grief later. Right now, there were children to save. The fighting was brutal. The Valkyrie had superior weapons and armor, but they were fighting an enemy that made no sense. Humans advanced through fire that should have stopped them. Wounded soldiers kept fighting. When weapons ran out, humans used fists and tools and anything they could find. A young Marine named Saijun took a shot to the chest. His armor was penetrated. He should have gone down. Instead, he kept moving forward long enough to destroy the Valkyrie gun position. Then he collapsed. His last words were, "Keep going." Scientist Soman was on the assault carrier, not supposed to be in combat. But when the boarding teams took heavy casualties, she grabbed a weapon from a fallen soldier and joined them. She was not a fighter. She was terrified. Her hand shook. But she knew the ship's layout from her research. She knew where the children would be held. She led a team through maintenance corridors. They avoided the heaviest fighting. It was not courage. It was calculation. The fastest path to the detention area. When they encountered Valkyrie soldiers, she fought with the desperation of someone who knew this was bigger than her own survival. Meanwhile, Do-hyun was on one of the support ships. He watched the battle through monitors. Watched the casualties mount. The military had refused to let him on the boarding teams. He was a civilian, an engineer, not a fighter, but he was also Minji and Junho's father. When security personnel were pulled away to help with the wounded, Do-hyun slipped away. He found a maintenance shuttle. He had studied Valkyrie ship designs. He knew there was a secondary docking port on the flagship's lower section, a port designed for supply deliveries. Lightly defended because it was far from the main fighting, he flew the shuttle through the battle zone, avoided combat, used the chaos as cover. He reached the supply port, used equipment he had built himself to override the Valkyrie locks. The port opened. He entered. Inside the flagship, the Valkyrie crew was in chaos. Alarms everywhere. Damage reports. Boarding teams. They did not notice one more human entering through a supply port. Dahum moved through service corridors. He was not a soldier, but he was motivated by something stronger than training. He was a father. And fathers did impossible things. The detention block was in the ship's secure section. Multiple guard posts. Heavy doors. Security systems. Marine Kyungwoo's teams reached it first. The fighting was intense. The Valkyrie knew if the humans reached the children, there would be nothing left to negotiate with. They defended desperately. Kyungwoo took a blast to his shoulder. The pain was incredible. He kept firing. Beside him, someone used her technical knowledge to disable the door's security system. The door began to open. A Valkyrie soldier fired. The shot hit Soman in the leg. She fell. A Marine named Yuna dragged her to cover, while another Marine, Woojin, charged the Valkyrie position. Woojin died doing it. But the Valkyrie soldier went down. The door opened fully. Inside, 4 children looked up with terrified faces. 17 days of captivity had marked them. They were thinner, frightened, but alive. Minji saw the humans, and her eyes widened. "Are you here to save us?" Before anyone could answer, another door opened. From a side corridor, Dalhyun appeared. He looked terrible, covered in dust and minor injuries from his unauthorized entry. But his eyes were clear. He saw his children. Minji and Junho saw him. For a moment, everyone was still. Then Minji said exactly what she had predicted 17 days earlier. "I knew you would come." Doyoon ran forward, gathered both children in his arms. Junho was crying. Minji held on to her father like she would never let go. Around them, the battle continued. They were still deep inside an enemy ship, still surrounded. But for one moment, a father held his children, and nothing else mattered. Behind Doyoon, a figure appeared. High Commander Ralsith stood in the corridor. He held no weapon. He looked at the scene before him. Human soldiers, dying for children who were not their own. A civilian father who had somehow breached a military vessel through sheer determination. "Take them," Ralsith said. "Take all the children and go. Please, just go." Admiral Taijin's voice came through the communication system. "This is Admiral Taijin to boarding teams. We have the children. All teams fall back to extraction points. We are leaving." But Kyungwoo looked at Ralsith and asked the question, "Why are you helping us? You are Valkyrie." Ralsith looked very tired. "Because I told them this would happen. I warned them. You do not take children from a bonding species. You do not threaten what they love most. They did not listen. Now they will pay the price. And so will we all, because you have shown us what you truly are. And now, you will not stop." The human fleet limped back toward Earth with the 4 children. They had lost 39 ships. Over 15,000 people had died in the rescue operation. The cost was devastating, but every single survivor said the same thing when asked if it was worth it. They looked at Minji, Junho, Hyeon, and Nari, and they said yes. The children were taken to a medical facility. Physically, they were mostly healthy. The Valkyrie had not harmed them. But 17 days of captivity had left marks, nightmares, fear of strangers. Nari would not let go of her father's hand. Junho jumped at sudden noises. Hyen barely spoke. Minji tried to be brave, but sometimes she would start crying without warning. The doctors said they would heal. Time and love would help them. But the doctors also noticed something else. The way the rescued personnel looked at these 4 children. Not with pity. With something else. Determination. Promise. The war did not end. It began. The Velkari Empire tried to negotiate. They sent messages to Earth, offered peace terms, offered compensation, offered everything they thought humans might want. The human response was simple and cold. It was delivered by Admiral Taijin in a broadcast seen across both human and Velkari space. You took our children. You made them weapons. You made them suffer. You thought we would negotiate. You thought we would compromise. You do not understand what you have awakened. We do not want your resources. We do not want your territory. We want one thing: justice. Every world you have conquered will be freed. Every species you have oppressed will be liberated. Your military will be dismantled. Your empire will end. These are not negotiating positions. These are facts. This will happen. The only question is how many of your people die before you accept it. The broadcast ended. The Velkari Council watched in their chambers. For the first time in their long history, they felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Across human space, a transformation occurred. People who had never thought about military service enlisted. Factory worker Minseo left his job to join the engineering corps. Teacher Haewon began weapons training. Even grandmother Sunny, who was 81 years old, organized supply lines with efficiency that impressed military logistics officers. When asked why, they all gave similar answers. Because children had been taken. Because that could have been their children, their grandchildren, their students. Because some things demanded a response that transcended normal life. The human military grew by 3 million in 2 months. It was not about patriotism or territory. It was something older and deeper. It was the response of a species that had decided a line had been crossed. The next engagement happened near Velkari Outpost 7. The human fleet was larger now, better equipped, but still not as advanced as Velkari technology. The battle should have favored the Velkari. It did not. The humans fought with a style the Velkari could not counter. Ships damaged beyond reasonable repair kept fighting. Crews that should have evacuated stayed at their posts. When a destroyer lost all weapons, the captain rammed it into a Velkari cruiser. The Velkari commander sent a message. You are losing more ships than we are. Your tactics make no sense. Why do you continue? The human commander's response was broadcast across all channels. Because we can afford to lose ships. Can you afford to lose your empire? We will keep coming. We will trade 10 ships for 1, 100 for 1 if needed. We will keep coming until you understand. You do not take children, ever. The Velkari retreated from Outpost 7. Over the next year, humanity liberated 6 Velkari-occupied worlds. Each campaign cost terrible losses. But each campaign also showed something the galaxy had never seen. A species that simply would not stop. The freed species watched in awe. Humanity was not the strongest, not the most advanced. But they were unstoppable because they were fighting for something beyond victory. They were fighting to prove that some actions would always have consequences. The Velkari Empire began to crumble. Not from military defeat alone, but from something worse. Their own people started questioning. If humans could fight this hard for children who were not even their own species, what did that say about the Velkari? Had they become something terrible? Internal resistance movements started. Velkari citizens who had never questioned their empire suddenly saw it differently. An empire that took children as hostages was not an empire worth defending. Hi, Commander Raul Seth sent his final transmission from a vessel fleeing the collapsing empire. It was addressed to all species across the galaxy. We are a cautionary tale. We encountered a bonding species. We observed them during peacetime and thought them weak. We saw parents who prioritized children over careers. We saw societies that spent resources on education and childcare rather than military expansion. We thought this made them vulnerable. We were fools. When we took their children, we did not face their military. We faced their entire species. Every human became a soldier. Every factory became a weapon maker. Every transport became a warship. Because we threatened their young. Because they are a bonding species, and bonding species have one characteristic we failed to understand. They value their offspring more than their own lives, more than victory, more than survival. When you threaten their young, you do not face an army. You face every member of the species who has ever loved a child. You face parents, grandparents, siblings, teachers, neighbors, strangers, all of them united by a bond that our technology cannot break and our weapons cannot defeat. Humans do not fight for territory or resources. They fight for each other. And when you threaten their children, you have declared war on something you cannot conquer. Love, devotion, the willingness to sacrifice everything for those they protect. We learned this too late. Learn from our mistake. Never harm humanity's children. Never. The transmission ended. Raul Seth's ship disappeared into unknown space. The Volcari Empire officially surrendered 3 months later. 5 years after the Titan raid, the galaxy was different. The Volcari Empire was gone. Its former territories were free. New councils had formed based on mutual cooperation rather than conquest. And humanity had changed too. They still explored, still built, still created. But they also maintained a military that could respond to any threat. Not because they wanted war, but because they had learned something important. Peace was possible, but only if threats against the vulnerable were met with absolute determination. Minji was 13 now. She attended school on Earth. She still had nightmares sometimes. But she was healing. She wanted to be a teacher. She said she wanted to help children feel safe, to help them learn and grow without fear. One day, a reporter asked her about the war, about the thousands who had died rescuing her and the other 3 children. Asked if she felt guilty that so many had sacrificed for her. Minji thought carefully before answering. My dad told me something after we came home. He said those people did not die for me specifically. They died proving something important. That children matter. That protecting the young is worth any cost. That some things are more important than being safe or comfortable or alive. He said they died so that everywhere in the galaxy, when someone thinks about hurting a child, they remember what happened to the Volcari. They remember that humans will come, always, no matter what. She paused, then continued. So no, I do not feel guilty. I feel responsible. Responsible to live a good life, to help other children, to make sure their sacrifice meant something. They gave their lives so children everywhere would be safer. I'm going to spend my life making sure they were right. The interview spread across human space. People watched it, and many cried, because Minji had understood. The war had not been about 4 children. It had been about all children, about drawing a line that could never be crossed again. Dahyun watched the interview with his wife. Junho sat beside them, now 13 and training to be an engineer like his father. When the interview ended, Dahyun's wife asked him a question. Do you regret it? The war? The losses? Dahyun looked at his children. Minji on the screen, confident and healing. Junho beside him, safe and growing. He thought about pilot Jiwon, who had died opening the path. About Marine Kyungwoo, who still carried scars from the boarding action. about Admiral Taijin, who had lost his own son but fought anyway, about the 15,000 who never came home. "No," he said quietly, "I would do it again. We all would. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us parents. Our children are everything, and we will burn down the stars to keep them safe." Years later, the event became known throughout the galaxy as the Titan Incident. It was studied in military academies, analyzed by xenobiologists, discussed by philosophers. But the conclusion was always the same: never threaten humanity's children. The phrase became a law, not written in treaties or agreements, but understood by every species that encountered humanity. It was not a threat. It was simply a fact, a warning based on evidence, because the Volcari had taken 4 children, and humanity had destroyed an empire. And everyone knew, with absolute certainty, that if it happened again, humanity would do it all over. They would pay any price, suffer any loss, fight for however long it took, because they were a bonding species, because they loved their young, because they were human. And that meant some things were worth everything. Minji kept her promise. She became a teacher. She helped thousands of children over a lifetime,